Okay. Oh,
Okay.
let's reconvene the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. If we're ready to play the video team, please, we can try this again. Thank you.
Hi everyone, so today we're going to be showing you some ways to navigate through both the budget PDF and the OpenGov publication of the budget. So first of all, when you open the adopted budget PDF, it brings you to this table of contents, which tells you all the pages and what page numbers they are on of this PDF. But also, if you click on the side here, it can expand to this menu that if you click on it, it'll bring you to different pages of the PDF. So for our example today, we're going to go to Council and Commissions, and let's just say I want to see the department overview. So this is how you get here on the PDF. But on the publication, our table of contents page looks like this. And again, it also is linked to every single page that we have here in this publication, which mirrors the PDF budget. But if we wanted to go into the department overview of the council and commissions, we would find that page here under departments and council and commissions. And it would bring us to this page, which is the exact same as the one in the PDF budget. But a cool thing about this OpenGov publication is that we can click here under View Report, and this expands into our transparency portal where you can play around with the different filters and see different levels of data and detail.
Thank you. So that is our video presentation for this evening. And you did want to highlight that the voice you heard is Alexis Chu, who is our budget intern. And she spent a lot of time working on this transition into this OpenGov Stories online format. And so we'll now take any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. So the converging from PDF to OpenGov is not automatic. It would require manual converging. But I think the council does want to we are going to keep maintaining the PDF
That
as
is correct.
the record, right?
We will continue to keep the PDF document. That will not go away. And it is not an automatic conversion. It was a manual conversion to get the information into the OpenGov format.
Yeah, thank you. It's really great that we would be able to click on the data. So would people be able to download the raw data?
They can for each individual data set, but not as a data set altogether. So any of the charts that you click into, you can download the data behind those charts.
I cannot do a one click and download all the data because, for example, nowadays I would load the entire document to an AI tool to analyze it. If it's available, we can just download all the raw data and then ask it to analyze between years. That would be great.
Not how we currently have the data configured, but we can work with OpenGov to see if there's a way to download all of the raw data at once versus having it in these save views, and that might open up that possibility. So it's something we can look into and see if we're able to do that.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Then let's go to public comment.
Mayor, I have no request to speak on this item.
Okay, yeah. So the other request that we have received actually for 2-3 years or more is to have an enterprise fund created for the Blackberry Farm pools and picnic area, and an enterprise fund for the senior center. And the comment we have received is somehow there was certain change in the OpenGov, such even what used to be available is harder to find out for these two. So going forward, it might be better to create enterprise fund for those. Would that be doable?
So I just want to look at the city attorney and make sure it's okay to answer this question. As this is more about a budget format versus creating specific funds.
I'm not sure what the legal issue would be.
It's just that it's not how the item was noticed. I just want to make sure it's appropriate to have that discussion.
Oh, I think it's close enough to the noticed item to have a general discussion. Thank you.
So we had responded to the resident that had the question in terms of the enterprise funds, and so those views are still available in OpenGov. All they simply need to do is scroll down to the bottom of the page. It shows revenues versus expenditures. This question has also been brought up to our auditors, who agree that those two funds wouldn't necessarily meet the definition of an enterprise fund, and they feel they're better suited not being in that category, and thus we have not moved them over to that category.
So what's the definition of enterprise fund?
I don't have it in front of me. It's quite a bit of a paragraph. We can get that over to you, but we
Okay.
did have our auditors opine on that a few years back.
But then in case the council do want to see a separate fund created, or we might revise the definition of enterprise fund, would that be doable?
So I would ask, why would you like to see them as enterprise funds? Is it to be able to see the revenue and loss? I would say the system is currently set up to show you that information without them having to be made enterprise funds.
Okay, so we will get more information later. Yeah, thank you. Any other Vice Mayor? And I see Councilmember Wang. I'll go to you after Vice Mayor.
Okay, so I just want to thank staff because I was serving on the budget format subcommittee from the audit committee with Chair Schmidt, and that was to implement the IAP recommendations. It was also really helpful to have the Baker-Tilly recommendations to go off of. We do have the audit committee is tasked with budget format review, and it was much more formalized and helpful to have this professional company helping us on it. And so there were a number of meetings that we held with staff, and there was additionally a group meeting to test out the system. So you're seeing there's been a lot of background work, and I want to thank staff for that. And hope this works well moving forward, and I'm glad that there's the PDF for people who are very familiar with using that document. You can take the PDF and a previous budget and load that into a ChatGPT at this point, or Perplexity or some other app. So that still is available, and I'm glad to see that we're going to continue having that moving forward as well. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Wang.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank staff for putting this in place. I think OpenGov has been a very useful tool in other jurisdictions in terms of providing that budget and transparency. Keeping both formats is very useful. So thank you very much for putting this into play. And thank you to Vice Mayor Moore for being on that committee as well with some of the reporting.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, then may we have a motion?
Moore, I move that we receive the budget format review presentation and approve the OpenGov budget format recommendations.
Seconded.
Okay, let's vote.
Councilmember Fruin,
Aye.
Councilmember Mohan,
Aye.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Moore,
Aye.
Mayor Chow.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Now let's go to item 12. I would say long-awaited study session on Mary Avenue project, the villas, and including project history, project siting, conditional transfer of city property rights, affordability restriction, and many other questions the public has proposed. We hope to use this opportunity to clarify them. So city manager, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a study session, and I do have John Martyr, our senior planner from Community Development Department, and we also have Michelle Hernandez, who is a real estate attorney with Elshire and Winder, working closely with our city attorney Floy on this item. So city staff will take a few slides from the beginning, and then we'll hand it over to Michelle to take us through, and we'll be here for questions after.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members, and city staff in the community. Kirsten, if you get the presentation started. Thank you. Again, this is a study session on the Mary Avenue project, which we've had a number of outreach efforts as well as community meetings and council study sessions on this topic as well. Again, this is a little bit more focused and the purpose narrow. Next slide, please. As indicated in the staff report, we're going to review a little bit about the history of the project, the status, the legal framework, and the next steps. Next slide. So some of the recommended actions, as indicated in the staff report, is that council provides direction on next steps. Part of those next steps is to appoint a negotiator or negotiators to negotiate either one, a disposition development agreement with the repurchase option, or two, a long-term ground lease. Further, is direct staff to perfect the surplus land exemption, right-of-way vacation, and prepare entitlements for future council action, as well as with this process is in support of the project to maintain a timeline to support the 2026 9% tax credit application. Next slide, please. So a quick summary. Next few slides will talk about the summary of the project as well as the project history. So quick summary is that this has been a project in development as well as a council direction for at least 5 years. Part of this 5-year process included an RFP to agencies that are all listed with the state of California, with the sole respondent being the Rotary Housing Choice and Shared Housing Collaboration. And going further, the city has, over the years, supported this project with up to $4 million in financial support, either through BMR fundings as well as some other fundings, which will go through the next slide, as well as from the county support for the Article 34 allocation, which was received this year. Next approvals, again, as discussed prior, would be a DDA or ground lease, SLA exemption, right-of-way vacation, and project entitlements, which include architectural site approval. Next slide, please. So being more specific within the project history, 2021 and 2022, staff had received from a prior the city attorney's office in 2021 the Surplus Land Act legal review, which got the framework for how we were to proceed with the parcel creation as well as the RFP and and how to formulate an agreement with a potential developer on the site. What is important to the funding of the site is that later that year and into next year, the city came into agreement with a few other jurisdictions in the county for the PLHA agreements, which were executed that year. In March of 2022, staff presented to council and got direction for the RFP to proceed with it, which a draft RFP was included, and the parcel map at that same hearing was introduced. By August 2022, the RFP was circulated to a list that was through the state of California, and by August 2022, the site was not only listed in the housing element, but we did get the one RFP response from Cherry's Housing. Next slide, please. By May 2023, the parcel map was recorded. Between February and April of 24, the exclusive negotiation agreement between Charities Housing and their group was approved and executed. And later that year, the housing element was adopted by the city, establishing an R4 high density zone for this parcel. And later that year, and following the 2025, funding approvals were, as mentioned before, the $4 million from the city funding was allocated to the project, as well as the project applicant submitting for their architectural site approval consistent with the housing element process. Next slide, please. The architectural site approval, the project description, and the project application has been consistent for the last 3 to 4 years. This is a 40-unit project. It's 100% affordable, primarily focusing on special needs housing as well as below mark to very low-income housing as well. 19 of the 40 units, or approximately 45% of the units, are designated for the IDD population. As with the rest of those going to folks, to a community that where the average median, they fall within the 30 to 60% AMI, or average median income for Santa Clara County. The physical description of the site, of the project, is two-story buildings with 22 parking stalls between the buildings on a 0.76 acre site. Next slide, please. What we have over here is the Mary Avenue right-of-way showing what's the existing conditions. The red outline is an overlay of the property lines. You can see how it would modify the existing Mary Avenue right-of-way by taking out a lot of those parking spaces on the west side, right there. The light gray is the off-site improvements that come with the project as required by the city's Public Works Department to facilitate sidewalks as well as bike lanes and parallel parking. Next slide, please. So again, the right-of-way modifications would necessitate a net loss of 89 parking spaces. However, there will be 33 parallel parking spaces along the west side of Mary Avenue, with those on the east side completely removed. The travel lanes will go from 11.5 feet to 11 feet, which is consistent with the travel width lanes on De Anza Boulevard as well as McClellan Road, two streets which are of higher traffic counts. Although the Mary Avenue, again, we talk about the modification, there will be a maintenance of bike lanes in both north and south directions, and as well as adding a sidewalk where one does not exist on the west side of Mary Avenue. Next slide, please. So here's just a cross section of the right-of-way. The right-of-way is anticipated to be 56 feet in width, you can see the 11-foot travel lanes in both directions on Mary, with the bike buffers on the east side being 2 feet, with the bike lanes 5 feet on both sides, and 8-foot parking lane on the west side, and a 5-foot sidewalk on both sides. A 4.5-foot sidewalk on the west side, and a 5-foot sidewalk on the east side. Again, just a reminder that there is currently no sidewalk on the west side. Next slide, please. Currently, throughout as the pro forma grows and changes, we do have a third-party consultant reviewing the pro forma to validate the assumptions as staff goes through the DDA process. Again, this is a summary of the city commitments of a $1 land convenience, either through purchase or lease. $3 million from the BMR loan, from the BMR fund, a loan from the BMR fund, $3 million at 3% interest. The PLHA funds are approximately $908,000 with $174,000 CDBG funds. Although not included in the $4 million funding and allocation, there is a park fee waiver of $2.16 million, and that's consistent with the city's BMR manual that any affordable or below market rate housing, whether on 100% affordable housing development site, or even housing sites where it's only 20%. Those are excluded from the park fee waivers. Next slide, please. The Charities Housing has had 3 community outreach events. The first 2 are listening sessions, and you see the dates right there, with the last one being a community open house of September of this year. At that community open house, they had various stations discussing various parts of the project, from civil engineering to the programming on site, to the actual architectural design of the buildings. Next slide. So currently, the ASA is an objective standard review. There are some other departments and divisions who are reviewing this as well, besides planning, which include the Santa Clara County Fire Department, Public Works, Sustainability, and Cupertino Sanitary, and all have commented and included as conditions of approval for the project. The applicant is hoping to submit plans in time to secure the 2025 building code requirements, as well as meeting the 9% tax credit application deadline, which we believe is April 2026. So ideally, the city's actions on this site, which include the project approval as well as the DDA, to be completed by February, early March of 2026. That being said, next slide. I will turn it over to Michelle to talk about the legality of what are the next steps in terms of the DDA as well as the vacation of the right-of-way.
Thank you. Oh, hello? Thank you. Hello. So a couple questions have arisen regarding the vacation of the public right-of-way. So we're just going to give a little bit of background on what that process looks like. There's typically 3 different ways that a right-of-way can be vacated. 2 of them don't apply to this project, so the one that we can apply is the non-summary vacation of right-of-way. That process would be started with seeking Planning Commission approval so that they can review conformity with the general plan. Typically, the Planning Commission has up to 40 days after submission for approval. Once that approval has been received, council can hold a hearing after a 15-day notice period with specific statutory requirements regarding what needs to be in the notice and how notice is provided. If council adopts the resolution approving vacation of the public right-of-way, it will be recorded with the county recorder to complete the vacation. Just to be clear, there's no statutory requirement regarding when the vacation process needs to be initiated. It only needs to be completed prior to disposition. Next slide, please. Questions have also arisen with respect to the Surplus Land Act, so I'll give a little bit of background on that as well. Any time that a public agency is disposing or leasing for an extended period of time public land, it is subject to the Surplus Land Act, which I will refer to as the SLA. So the SLA requires that public property be deemed either surplus land or exempt surplus land. In the case of the Mary Avenue project, as Jean mentioned before, the legal review was sought in 2021 to ensure that from inception, this project met one of the requirements for the exempt surplus land designation. And so with the intention of seeking exempt surplus land designation, essentially there are 2 steps that need to be met. The first is that the city council will once it's brought before the city council can approve a declaration and make a declaration that the land is exempt surplus land. And then once that approval is received, notice is given to HCD in order to complete compliance with the Surplus Land Act. Next slide, please. A couple questions have also arisen regarding the type of agreement that we are considering for this project. So there are 2 types of agreements that have similar names: the Disposition and Development Agreement, which is colloquially referred to as the DDA, and the development agreement, which is normally referred to as a DA. So a DA is authorized by statute and allows a city and developer to agree to freeze land use regulations in exchange for community benefits. Historically, a DA was created to allow developers to have land use regulations they could rely on during the whole lifetime of the project. Typically, in a real estate and in a housing development context, you would see a DDA, which is not a statutory document. Instead, it's subject to normal contract principles. And because of that, it doesn't need to meet the same rigorous requirements of a DA, which are listed in the statute. And instead, it's approved like a normal purchase and sale agreement would be, or any other contract that comes through the city. So it's subject to approval by the city council once it's brought before the council. Next slide, please. So in terms of future required actions, first there would be to negotiate and approve either a DDA or a long-term ground lease. Next, we would declare exempt surplus land and file notice with HCD to comply with the SLA requirements. We will also approve the right-of-way vacation to meet the street vacation requirements, and then approval of project entitlements that are tied to this project. With respect to this particular project, the intention is to approve or submit all of these items for approval from the council concurrently. That may change in the future, but that's currently the plan. Next slide, please. So the rationale supporting the recommended action that's made within the staff report and that was mentioned in the beginning of this presentation includes the fact that the housing element identifies the Mary Avenue site as a priority housing site. The housing element has policies and strategies that encourage housing for low-income and special needs communities, and it supports a number of policies that have been set forth by the city. These policies also ensure that the city is aligning with state housing goals. Next slide, please. And with that, we conclude our presentation. We've left up the recommended actions that John already went over at the beginning of the presentation. And with that, I think we can take any questions.
Thank you. Any council member has questions? Vice Mayor?
Thank you. So is the loan repayment a requirement, the 3%? Or is that something that is typically forgiven? How does that work?
So normally the loan repayment, right now the loan repayment is going to be structured so that it is repaid. And I believe the payments start once the project becomes profitable.
And do they expect the project to be profitable?
My understanding is that's not the main goal of the project. It would be nice, but I don't believe that's something that's going to necessarily occur right at the beginning. I think over time, the expectation is that it will bring a certain degree of profit.
Okay. And there was some reference in written communications with regards to the contamination, which is similar to what we saw at the Mary Avenue Dog Park due to its proximity to the 85. So it's not unusual to have high lead levels actually throughout the whole county, unfortunately. But who would be responsible for cleaning up the soil?
So the responsibility would lie on the developer himself. So they would have to be in contact with the Department of Environmental Health for the county and submit a soil management plan as recommended by the city's peer review consultant.
All right, thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
No.
If not, I have some question. So could you clarify, we understand that the city has sought legal advice since 2021, which is great. So the plan has been that we will do everything together once all the agreements are worked out. But he also mentioned there should be vacation prior to disposition. So at what point there is disposition? At the point of approving the DDA or after?
So normally disposition is actually after the DDA. The typical transaction timeline starts with signing of the DDA, and at that time, that's where a lot of these items that we're discussing would occur. So the vacation would normally or can be tied at the same time as the DDA. The SLA or the declaration required by the SLA will typically happen at the time of the DDA. And then any entitlements that are required on the planning side are typically awarded at the time of the DDA. However, the entitlements and the DDA normally include conditions that are required in order to be able to proceed with the actual conveyance or ground lease of the property. And so what will happen is after signing of the DDA, all those conditions need to be met, whatever they are. With respect to this particular project, they are seeking tax credits. So that tax credit process will need to be complete, and tax credits will have to be successfully awarded before conveyance or ground lease of the property. Once that process has been completed as well, then we approach what normally is considered closing. So closing is the time when you will see the grant deed or the ground lease for conveyance or lease of the property. And in addition to that, that's when the affordability covenant, which ensures that this project remains an affordable housing project for the life of the ground lease or for the life of the deed, depending on which structure is decided upon. And in addition to that, any funding documents that need to be executed as well. So the loans would be executed at that time, along with any tax credit paperwork. So all of those things actually happen many months following the DDA.
Oh,
May I?
so we.
I just want to follow up if I may.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the vacation and the declaration under the SLA, is it beneficial for that to occur after the signing of the DDA as a contingency, a condition that must be met prior to conveyance or ground lease of the property?
Normally, yes. So normally what you would see is that the declaration for the SLA and the vacation process would be completed much closer to the disposition. As I mentioned before, neither of those requirements include a statutory timeline requirement as to when it needs to be initiated. However, the vacation does need to be completed at least 30 days prior to disposition. But the reason those are normally held off until the end is because there's always uncertainty whether something might come up during that long process that might prevent the project from moving forward or might make it infeasible. And so already having moved on the vacation or the surplus land declaration can create problems after the fact if it's done too early. In this project, it may be done closer to the time of the DDA because tax credits are being sought, and it might help to strengthen the application for tax credits. So it would be in support of the developer's application.
Closer, but it should be done after the DDA because DDA is not the point of disposition. The point of disposition is when you close the deal, when you actually either transfer the property or actually has any lease agreement.
Right. So it can occur concurrently with approval of the DDA as long as it occurs prior to disposition, which is when the grant deed or the ground lease is signed. So that's typically at least in this case, it'll be a few months after signing of the DDA.
Okay. And so you mentioned the project entitlement is one of the steps. But this project as housing element site that's affordable housing, we have been told that this will be by right approval, which won't come to the council. So what do you mean by project entitlements? Is that the by right approval process?
That's a great question. essentially, when being referred to as a by right approval, typically what that means is that the prior approval has already been given, and therefore at the stage that approval or final execution is required, the approval is not sought a second time from council. So for example, with respect to the DDA, typically included with the DDA are attachments that will cover the grant deed, the funding documents, and the affordability covenant. Normally, therefore, forms of those documents will be prepared, and the council will review those along with the DDA when it's giving its approval. So that is the initial approval stage for the city council. So when it's discussed as a by right approval, typically that's talking about later when the grant deed is actually signed, because approval of the form was already given previously. It is required if a material deviation from the forms that were approved occurs, then a second approval is typically sought from city council. So even though it might be referred to as by right, there is an opportunity for council to review any of the documents that will ultimately be executed.
I guess I'm not a little confused on what's project entitlements in this case, because usually we approve a project, it's when they get the entitlement.
Right. So project entitlements in this case is typically referring to any permits that might be necessary and planning related documents. So to the extent that we want to discuss that further, I can pass that along in terms of what kind of planning documents might be required. But normally when referring to entitlements, that's what's being referred to.
And these are, so you are saying by right approval will come after that. By right approval will be by staff at an administrative hearing.
I mean, I can start to answer this question, but yes, you're correct that the housing element did say that, housing element sites, if they met certain thresholds, and in this case, it's a 100% affordable project, would be by right and could be approved at an administrative hearing. But this is for further discussion that we can see what the next steps would be if we want to take it concurrently with the DDA and whatnot.
Okay, so the other question I asked before the meeting in the supplemental report, I see that you're about the on-street parking, the removal of on-street parking. So there will be removal of on-street parking on both sides of the street. And the answer in the supplemental report, because I asked whether that removal of on-street parking would come to the council, because usually removal of street parking will be a council decision. But the answer says that when we vacate the street, then the parking will be automatically removed. I would understand that for the west side of the street, but that doesn't seem to make sense for the east side of the street, where there is no vacation happening.
So, this would be typical of any type of development project where offsite improvements are required, right? So any offsite improvements, so example, you have any townhome project that has come before council in the past or will come before council, those will entail some type of offsite improvements. And those offsite improvements are approved with or are considered as well as approved or even denied at the hearing body which it goes in front of. No different than what would happen with the Mary Avenue project. So, I wouldn't consider the removal of the parking on the east side as part of a vacation, because the city will still maintain ownership regardless of this through a lease or through selling.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, because I'm confused by the answer. So vacation doesn't mean removal of parking. Removal of parking should come to the council afterwards. However, because this project will be by right approval, this is where I'm confused again. If it's not going to be approved by the council, it's not like other projects. The council approve it, then any improvement on the street, especially in this case across the street, would be approved together. But in by right approval, I'm assuming that approval should not include anything beyond the site. Because anything beyond the site is not the right of that development to change. That's not administrative. So I'm confused. Shouldn't then this approval of removal of parking come to the council?
So, I mean, it's not, the Public Works Department determines the offsite modifications, and that's typical of any project. Even someone coming in for a 2-story house that would require sidewalk or dedication to the city. I mean, that's an administrative approval, even via a building permit as well. So the offsite improvements are considered part of the development review.
Including removal of street parking?
Correct.
City Attorney,
I must,
any by right approval project can remove street parking without any public notice or public council direction?
I would need to interface with the firm's land use attorneys to give you an accurate answer on that. But I would like to say that with respect to the housing element and the entitlements of the building, that is by right, as you're saying, or required administratively through the state housing laws. But the city's decision to invest $4 million and the city's decision to ground lease and or sell through DDA the land is a decision for the city council. How the parking spaces fit into that, whether it's by right or a decision of the city council, I do think I would need to ask our main land use lawyer, John Fox, that question. But perhaps our planners here have the accurate information on that piece.
Because I would be concerned because most of the housing element sites likely would be by right approval. We somehow gave away that council approval process. And if that by right approval will include reconfiguration of public street to take away our street parking, then that process would be very problematic. They might take away. So if that's the current process, we have to somehow change that. Okay, so I think that's all my questions. If no, I might have more, but I think let's hear from the members of the public. Council Member Fruin.
So I just wanted to get a few added pieces of clarification. As I understand it, this is the only site in the housing element that is actually designated or set up for extremely low-income housing. Is that not correct?
100%, for 100% development, correct.
Yeah, okay. And amongst the various policies that we have sitting inside the housing element, this site is really the only one that we've identified as part of that.
If you're speaking of the special needs housing as well as very low, correct?
Correct, okay. Because we are required specifically under housing element law to plan for and facilitate extremely low-income housing. It's found at Government Code 65583, subdivision F2A. If we did not have this there, since this is a required program, would we not then have to reopen the housing element and change it?
Sorry. Potentially.
Yeah. And that would require HCD approval, would it not?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Anytime we change the housing element, yes.
Okay. To our visiting attorney, there's also, with the loan, a particular issue that does concern me with capitalization. Is that something that we are required to include?
I would have to double check whether that capitalization is required. And I would also defer regarding whether it's currently included.
It's noted in the staff report.
Yeah. Well, in that case, then I would have to confirm whether it's required. I know that currently the funding has been considered by council previously, so we can provide additional information pretty quickly regarding whether that was included in there.
Sure. It would just be good to know, because as a source of potential relief, that seems like a low risk area to potentially offer. One of the concerns that was voiced by the applicant was with respect to the impending applicability of new building codes. So if this matter were to go to an administrative hearing and there were at least underlying entitlements created, would that in fact prevent them from having to rely on just the next new building code?
A little bit of a complicated answer. To get them into the current building code, they would have to at least submit building permits by end of year.
Yeah.
Correct. If they didn't by January 1st of 2026, they would not be. They would have to follow the building codes of the following year.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, that's an aggressive time schedule. Is there a mechanism by which you think an administrative hearing could be held that would allow you to go through that process so that they could apply for building permits?
Can you guys hear me? Perfect. Okay. So, yeah, we through the building division and building official, we do have a mechanism where we can allow applicants to submit a building permit prior to the end of calendar year to lock in the current building code, with the assumption that they've been working on the project with the current building code. But that is a risk that the applicant will have to take on the event of the project changes, and there's additional changes major enough where they need the new building code will kick in. That will be a risk that the applicant will have to take on, but there is that mechanism that we currently employ.
Okay, so they would not need then to have the administrative hearing before year end. Is that true, or?
That's
or
correct.
Not? Okay, all right.
That's good to know. Yeah. Just for public's information, I think in the supplemental report Q6, question 6, I did ask what are the list of questions, actions that the council will still have to take on this project, even though the approval will be administrative hearing. So the final DDA prior to signature will be council action. Approval of vacation of public right-of-way will be council action. Approval of the form of grant deed or grant lease, affordability covenant, and related financing documents will be council action. And approval of any documents that materially deviate from previous approved forms. So those are. So it will come to the council for these final decisions. Personally, I am very concerned still about the traffic and the parking, and I would not want the parking to be taken away by separated bike lane, because this area, the traffic, this is not one of the arterial streets. There are a lot of bike traffic, so I'm hoping that I think a bike boulevard kind of method will be sufficient for this particular street, and that would allow us to still have parking on both sides of the street. So therefore, I would like to advocate the parking configuration also comes to the council for any decision. That should not be a part of the by right approval. Thank you. That's my piece. Let's go to public comment. We have 18 requests to speak, so that will be 54 minutes. I think we have time to hear everyone. Yeah.
Okay, Mayor, starting with 13 requests to speak from Community Hall, and there are 8 requesting to speak remotely. First, we have Arif, followed by Lena Lang, followed by Roberta Mirai. Welcome. Yes. Anyone requesting to speak, please submit your request in the next 9 minutes. Welcome.
Good evening once again. I'm back again over here to talk about my safety concerns, but this is about the villa this time. So my name is Arif. I'm here to express my safety concerns around this project. I recognize the importance of building and supporting new communities, but with the proposed road narrowing and elimination of several parking spots, are we building a safe community? Is it going to be safe for the current residents? Is it going to be safe for the people who use Mary Avenue on a daily basis? Think about senior citizens, think about kids biking on the roads to the school or to the parks. And is it going to be safe for the new residents of this villa, given that they are going to be very close to the road? I wonder if there was an independent township planner engaged to conduct a comprehensive study to assess long-term impacts. I'm not talking about getting a study here or there based on the current situation. I'm talking about doing some historical analysis, some trend analysis, predicting out what will it be like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now. What will Mary Avenue look like if we have this project? I sincerely urge the council members to think about the long-term consequences of approving this project, because the decisions you make will impact the residents and the city for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Lena Lang, followed by Roberta Mirai, followed by Rachel Rose.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Lena. I'm a longtime resident of the Garden Gate neighborhood of Cupertino. I have slides to share tonight.
Yes. Okay,
Just
they
5.
should be appearing shortly.
Thank you.
Video, I'm sharing my screen. I might be sharing the wrong screen. One moment. Thank you, video. Okay, and just prompt me when to advance.
Okay, there it goes. There was a black box at first. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, next. I'm here to update the committee that there has been a community petition that has now gathered over 600 verified signatures from both residents and visitors, family members, and friends that frequent this area. You can see in the pictures here of a recent community event where we protested along the site. We've also demarcated the outline of what the future Mary Ave building would look like if it were developed here, and you can see that it encroaches into the public roadway. Our message is simple. Please do not proceed with this project in its current state. You must halt and restart this whole process. And this time, please hear the residents and let us have a voice. Next slide. As mentioned previously, we are very concerned this project will guarantee accidents. The project simply doesn't fit the space. It ignores setback requirements on all 4 sides of the building to get it to fit. This is unsafe. It poses fire and safety hazards. It builds into the road. It's going to narrow the traffic and bike lanes, and it creates safety issues for the pedestrians, the bikers, cars, public trucks that pass by every day, multiple times per day, over 100 trips per day. We talked a lot about parking today, about removing 89 parking spots. And it's not just anywhere. It's in a bustling area that is still growing. Westport is still growing. De Anza College is still growing. Memorial Park will have great improvements soon and garner more visitors. So it's just a bustling area that's going to be really lacking in parking. Additionally, I don't think this was totally clear to everyone. The proposed removal of the east side parking lane is the parking side along Glenbrook Apartments. If that is removed, the traffic lane will get a lot closer to the apartments and bedrooms of over 100 units. That's not really fair to all of those residents. So please consider that as well. Lastly, we had brought this up before that this project lacks short-term parking spaces. It's anticipated that there will be lots of service providers visiting, delivery vans, Uber trucks, etc. And they should not be allowed to double park and block the streets. They need to accommodate these sorts of needs. Next slide, please. We'd like the committee to stop the process and be transparent. We were not asked for comment about vacating this land, about converting use of public space. You know, now that over 600 residents have been alerted to this, you can see the turnout tonight. We are seriously concerned. Our community was simply never given a chance to weigh in on this decision to give away a piece of our public land before all these plans were thrown around to design on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. And next we have Roberta Murai, followed by Rachel Rose, followed by Nikhil Janankar. Welcome, Roberta.
Thank you, Mayor Chow and City Council members. Greetings. As a mother of two and a grandmother of 4 children who live in the Garden Gate area, I speak on behalf of my family. It is essential that I speak up to protect their safety. Anyone who looks at the 8-foot freeway median strip and a 19.5% foot loss of Mary Avenue, plus loss of 89 parking spots, can see the hazard this will create for the 1,500 households that live in this area. It is so very obvious, even to the casual observer. I emphasize with those in need of housing, but this is not the right place. 40 housing units in exchange for hazardous and dangerous road conditions for 1,500 households is not a fair exchange. Once built, there is no turning back. One cannot rectify an error in decision-making. One cannot say, oops, we made a mistake. In order to create these 40 housing units, City Council has turned their backs on building regulations and codes, making exceptions to safety rules that were put in place to protect us all, granting exceptions beyond the pale. The question one asks is why? 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 Working behind closed doors to expedite this process, ignoring protocol to notify the neighborhood residents of any city project of this size would mandate, not offering residents a chance to participate in the discussion, all of it ignored. One must ask why, why? Taking away public land, our public right-of-way, without regard to our safety, it seems inconceivable that city officials who were voted in to look out for the majority benefit would pay no mind and disregard the rules that are in place to protect us all. Anyone looking at this would be puzzled. One must ask, why? The Rotary Club of Cupertino has promoted this project and worked closely with the City Council to pass it through. The Rotary Club does good works. I applaud them for their humanitarianism. But for this project, they have overlooked the needs of the many that the project will impact. It will hurt the entire neighborhood. The safety issues are many and have been outlined by others. 2 of the City Council members are part of this Rotary
Thank you, Roberta. That is your time. Thank you. And next we have
They should be recused.
Rachel,
they should recuse themselves.
Rachel Rose, followed by Nikhil Janankar, followed by Rahesh. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, my name is Rachel Rose, mother of a young boy who bikes on Mary Avenue, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak before you today on why we need to halt this Mary Avenue Villas project. One, our streets are already unsafe. This project will guarantee accidents. I live on Mary Avenue, and I want to talk about the safety every day now. We have cars, pedestrians, bicyclists, children, plus those going to the dog park, Memorial Park, nearby schools, and zero safe crosswalks. This project will force traffic lanes to be even narrower and push parking onto just one side of the street, forcing people to jaywalk right between two huge apartment complexes. This project clearly doesn't fit in this narrow space. Please prioritize our lives over a design that literally builds danger into our neighborhood layout. Our streets are not wide enough for this density. 2, parking chaos and quality of life. We cannot handle more gridlock. This project's plan for 22 parking spots and no short-term parking stalls is completely unrealistic for a 40-unit complex, especially one housing residents who rely on regular visits from caregivers and family. Where will all those cars go? They will spill directly onto our residential streets. We already face impossible parking during weekly De Anza flea markets and Memorial Park events. Over 100 more housing units have not yet been built at Westport. This project will make life an everyday nightmare of parking shortages, stopped vehicles, and noise. There's very limited exits for people in the neighborhoods to get out, and this is one of the lifelines we have. This project will make life an everyday nightmare. You are approving a level of density that will destroy the quality of life in the Glenbrook, Casa de Anza, Arroyo, and Garden Gate neighborhoods. Please listen to the people who actively live here. 3, stop the process, be transparent. The city didn't ask us first. The city has an obligation to be transparent and follow the rules, but with this project, essential steps were skipped. The community was never given a chance to weigh in on the decision to give away a piece of our public land, our public right-of-way, before you started designing a building on it. This feels like a deal was made behind closed doors, and we were only invited to comment after the fact. We are asking you to be good neighbors and responsible leaders. Think of your 1,500 households who already live here. Halt this project now. Take a step back, follow the state laws that were ignored, and bring this decision back to the public in an honest, upfront way. Give us a voice before you give away our streets. 4, ethical concerns and need for impartiality. Request immediate investigation of conflicts of interest. The public has serious concerns that this deliberation was not impartial. Before it moves forward, we formally request that Attorney Andrews seek immediate ex parte disclosures from all council members and conflict of interest with Rotary, Charteries, and IDD organizations. Please do a thorough investigation. Thank you so much.
Next, we have Nikhil Jinankar, followed by Rahesh, followed by Ranjan Desai.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. My ask is very simple. I live pretty close to Mary Avenue. We are a family of 4 living in Cupertino since about 20 years. This project severely affects us, our lifestyle, and about 1,500 people. So my ask is very simple. Put an immediate stop to this project. I listened to some of the presentations today. After 4 years of starting this, you still haven't kind of figured out a lot of things. So that doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence that you have really thought through this. And most importantly, you have failed to engage us, people. What the most important aspect of all this? Simple questions were not answered. What if we don't do this? What if we don't invest those $4 million, don't take those credits? What happens? Life has been still going on for so many years. What does this project do? And I see a lot of anxiety and disappointment in 1,500 people. So my question is simple. Stop this. Take into account what citizens are really thinking, whether they really want to do this. Looks like you guys want to do this, but that doesn't mean we want us. So I really want you to kind of put a hold on this project, and let's follow the process, because we have been protesting very strongly about this for a long, long time. So don't think that you can go ahead and start the construction and we will not protest. Because we will protest, we will not let the construction go through. So take immediate notice of this, and then basically make sure that we are involved in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikhil. Next we have Rahesh, followed by Ranjan Desai, followed by Jean Schwab. Welcome, Rahesh.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. As a resident of Mary Avenue, I am here to express my concerns about Mary Avenue Villa project. The primary responsibility of any city administration is to protect the interest of people, and that starts with a simple word called transparency. Unfortunately, this project has raised serious concerns, especially around safety, traffic, and already limited parking in our neighborhood. We all know the Memorial Park and Dianza, there are a lot of activities and festivals happens, right? Parking is a big, huge problem here, and it doesn't sound great to take away public parking and use the public parking for villa construction that result in huge safety risk for bikers and kids going to school. Please take safety of residents high priority. I think that is one of the highest priority any city administration need to take care. Safety of the resident, that should be the highest priority. Please find another location. I think this is not the right place. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahesh. Next we have Ranjan Desai, followed by Jean Schwab, followed by Sean Fung. Welcome, Ranjan.
Good evening, council members, mayor, vice mayor, council members, and city staff. So this project has been going on for some time now, and there was no proper public discussions, transparency, or accountability, and we have been neglecting all the safety issues here. It was first rezoned, and then it was actually parking lots were taken out. The parcel was made bigger, and then it was actually, made into housing element, and then trying to now see if that it can be sold or it can be given on lease. This is outrageous, actually. We have to think about the people who are talking about it here. People have not been informed. The public never has been told about this. And I was just listening to the study session, and that said it's community development. What community development are you doing here? It's not for the IDD population, neither is it for the community here. The IDD population are being taken away from their safety in their houses, from the people who are taking care of themselves and putting them on the roads there. There's hardly into unfamiliar situations, and it's not right. You could ask a simple question to the people who are saying that it is for the IDD population. It is not. There's no community development at all happening here at all. So, please take that into consideration also. The other part is, people have been talking about all the narrowing streets and taking over the parking lots and stuff like that. It's a gridlock. There's so many houses, so many people living around the Garden Gate community, and we don't have an outlet to go to the freeways or outside. Mary Avenue is the main artery kind of thing where people take, and in case of emergency, please think of it. The road is going to become narrower. Going to take off like 19.5 feet of that, and then you're going to take all the public, the parking lots, and even the bike lanes. The bike lanes are so safe now for kids to go. There are a lot of kids who have come here to talk to, but I don't think they have signed up. But then they bike to school there. It's the safety of them, and it's also the safety of the people who are going to be living there, the IDD population. Think about them. They cannot come here and talk. And we are taking actions thinking that it's a community development. It is not. It is not for them at all. And one more thing is, we have to be considerate of all the public comments that have been happening here. And people have been coming and talking about that. And you should take into consideration all the information that people are telling you on this. And please look into it twice. Look into it again, and then see that you do the right thing. Please take a right decision here. And I hope you agree to all the comments that people are presenting here, and then look forward to making you the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjan. Next we have Jean Schwab, followed by Sean Fung, followed by Connie Cunningham. Welcome, Jean.
Hi, all. Good evening, and thank you for giving this opportunity to talk. My name is Rati, and I have taken Ginny's place because I really wanted to talk. I have two children, and both are going to Monte Vista High School. And I chose this place last year because of safety. The first thing I chose is, hey, are my kids safe to drive to school? And that was one of the reasons why I moved to this place. And so children's daily routes will become very dangerous, and definitely it has created a sense of fear in me. And I'm speaking on behalf of all the mothers and parents who have children. And this project will make our most vulnerable children and most innocent children, putting them to risk with this safety issue. And already, like in Memorial Park, there are a lot of after programs, sports and park activities, tutoring programs and teen center. With all this available, there's already an overflow currently, but this new project will add more overflow which cannot be handled, and definitely adds a great sense of fear in parents for this. So with this project, we'll also lose safe walking and biking routes, and it also lacks pedestrian infrastructure and violates basic safety design principles. This project definitely adds danger without adding much infrastructure. So the request kindly is to please consider this. Please consider the safety of young children, and this creates unsafe streets and endangers our most innocent children and our future. And it strains school and park corridors and worsens parking and our quality of life. Please help us live a better life and give us a sense of safety. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Next we have Sean Fung, followed by Connie Cunningham, followed by Gia Pham. Is Sean still? Are you taking Sean's place?
Yes.
Okay.
My name's Michael. Back again. Mayor, council members, thank you again for listening. I didn't plan on speaking, but I am particularly concerned when I hear about potential conflicts of interest. And if this is true, those members who are in conflict should definitely recuse themselves. I come here to speak definitely as a resounding no. I'm definitely against this project. I come from a different angle. I used to live in San Jose. San Jose, I used to live directly across from affordable housing, Section 8. I know the horrors that can go on, the drug dealing, the lack of police response, ambulances, fire department, child protective services, noise, partying. I don't know if Cupertino has considered this in terms of allowing this project to be shoehorned into such a small space, in terms of, has any consultation been conducted with regards to the fire department, with regards to police, with regards to social services? I don't know. In particular, I'm also, sorry, I'm also concerned that, to me, this is the wrong area for this. While potentially being well-meaning, shoehorning this into our neighborhood with the loss of parking space and the additional safety concerns that you've all heard today, it just doesn't make any sense. I think ultimately, I'm asking you as city council members, as a litmus test, would you honestly feel comfortable with this right next to your housing? I don't think so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Next we have Connie Cunningham, followed by Gia Pham, followed by Orrin Mahoney. Welcome, Connie.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, city manager, and all viewers and listeners to this recording. My name is Connie Cunningham. I'm a 38-year resident and a chair of the Housing Commission, speaking for myself only. I want to thank the City Council for its vote on July the 15th, 2025, to move this project forward after a study session that evening. I am supportive of the application to develop new, extremely low-income homes for intellectually, developmentally disabled individuals, IDD, and also other below-market rate housing units on city-owned property along Mary Avenue. It is the right thing to do for Cupertino to join other cities in our region to provide housing for residents of all incomes and abilities. I am disappointed that this project is being delayed by holding another study session now, more than 4 months after the July 15th vote. Families with IDD have been searching for solutions for over 20 years in Cupertino. 300 people, families and more live in Cupertino with this issue. This is much needed housing that has been in the council's work program for many years. In 2019, former Mayor Scharf made it a priority. I have attended the Housing Commission and City Council meetings for this project. I have attended housing element meetings at which the site was identified for this purpose. It is hard to find land in Cupertino. I applaud the council and the city planners for finding this special place. It would not be possible to build these homes without Cupertino-owned property. Many families and IDD individuals will be helped with this housing. Many live with aging parents. It will also help the city's goal to keep individuals from falling into homelessness. There are many financial benefits to the city to have housing that prevents homelessness. I am disappointed that this project is being delayed. Construction costs are increasing and new building requirements are coming in 2026. Delay may also make it difficult for the builder to obtain financing. ELI housing is particularly difficult to finance. I urge you to take the remaining steps now. It is critical to move this project forward tonight. Thank you for this time to talk.
Thank you, Connie. Next we have Gia Pham, followed by Orrin Mahoney, followed by Jean Bedord. Welcome, Gia.
Hello, thank you for welcoming me. Thank you for this time to speak, and good evening. My name is Gia, and I'm speaking in support of Mary Avenue Villas, partly as myself and representing Housing Choices, which is the support service provider for the 19 IDD units. So I'd just like to say that all of the comments about traffic and bike safety is kind of like pure speculation, because we did have a traffic study that shows the site is safe. A direct quote from the study says, "The project is located on Mary Avenue, which is a local street. This street is not identified in the city's high injury network. The project will not conflict with the general plan policies because the project would not affect access to roadways, transit, bicycle, or pedestrian facilities." This study was done by a third-party consultant and affirmed by another party. Also, if you are concerned about the drinking and the partying that could happen, do you mean playing bingo with a jug of Fanta and sparkling apple cider in your hand? We also have Pin the Tail on the Donkey, because that's what we were doing at our Thanksgiving parties with our disability residents. This is my third or fourth time in these chambers advocating to support Mary Avenue. So we've been having this conversation for quite a bit time, and I mean, it's a housing element site, and for all the other reasons that the city themselves put up in the second slide of their presentation. Cupertino is home to 325 people with developmental disabilities, including 122 adults that deserve to be living independently. They're not being taken and kidnapped out of their homes. They're choosing to live independently because their elders who are maybe looking after them are growing older, and they cannot afford market rate rent and would like to live independently. And these IDD units are super affordable and will allow them to be living and having the dignity instead of being forced into institutions or on the streets. Would you like them on the streets? Would that make the streets safer? Was that better than taking away 19.5 feet of your street? The IDD units in the project is going to be dispersed among the other units, which fosters an integration of so folks are not being isolated, and it ensures that our members are valued in the community. And this location is ideal because none of the residents, like IDD residents, they usually don't drive. So they can walk in the park and be included in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Gia. Next, we have Oren Mahoney, followed by Jean Bedord, followed by Stephen Kwan. Welcome, Oren.
Good evening. You have the pleasure of having me with laryngitis. So sorry about that. Your slides, please.
Yes, let me pull that up for you. Okay, you should be able to see it now.
Thanks. So just a reminder, a reminder of how this started. Go back, please. This started in 2019 when Mayor Scharf presented this slide at the State of the City, asking the community to address this need. And he outlined a project like this that was done back east, and he wanted to put a coalition together to make it happen. And that's what we did. I sat in the audience and said, how can we do this? And we put a group together, next slide, that you know about to deal with this. And ironically, if you look at the current project, it's very similar to the one that was presented by Mayor Scharf back then. It's about the same number of units. It looks about the same. It was done with a coalition of the city, a nonprofit group, and a housing choices group that needs the housing. As you heard in the very comprehensive city staff report, there were 3 meetings that were done. Next. We listened carefully, the group listened carefully at each of those meetings, and we heard every oral and written communication that's been presented to you, including tonight, and we've addressed every one of those. There's a fact sheet that's part of the frequently asked questions on our website, and every single issue that's been brought up, from environmental contamination to traffic to parking to the needs of the people, fire, police, everything that's been brought up is addressed there. And then finally, next. Keep going, I'm way ahead of that. That's the frequently asked questions site. Fact sheets next, you can show that. Including, by the way, time-lapse videos of Mary Avenue showing the traffic and the parking that's there today. One more. This addresses, again, on the frequently asked questions about what these people are going to be needing. They don't need daily people coming there or whatever. It's very independent living. And finally, I do not have to remind you, final slide about the housing element. So if you remember earlier in the meeting tonight, you saw in the Darrell video that in those days I was able to work honorably with Darrell Lum constructively on dealing with very contentious issues at the time. And I would be more than happy to address anybody here about the issues today and go through point by point what we said on the frequently asked questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oren. Next, we have Jean Bedord, followed by Stephen Kwan, followed by Andy Leaf. Welcome, Jean.
Good evening, council members and staff. My name is Jean Bedord, and I'm a longtime resident of Cupertino. I support this project for many reasons, including those articulated by Connie Cunningham. We have an aging population that needs help for their dependent children who are in the IDD population. Now, I attended all of the community meetings. The process was open and transparent. But many of the neighbors, not many of the neighbors, actually chose to participate. I was disappointed because it's a great project. However, tonight I'm going to focus on something else. The city has a housing element problem. When the United Furniture Townhome project is approved, there will be a 2-unit deficit in affordable housing. This will get worse with more townhome projects and the reduction of affordable units at Valco, also called the Rise. The city, once the first of these townhome projects is approved, has 6 months, only 6 months, to start responding. This is the only site in the housing element that has 100% affordable housing. It's important to get this project approved. HCD will be watching Cupertino. It has a bad reputation. Failure to move this project ahead on a timely basis has the risk of potentially decertifying the housing element, and we certainly don't want that. We know what Builder's Remedy is about. We don't need any more Schofield projects. So I urge this council to move ahead and streamline the process and get this approved as quickly as possible. Because of construction costs, because of financing, it is essential to our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Next, we have Stephen Kwan, followed by Andy Leaf, followed by Nadaraj. Welcome, Stephen.
Hi. I spoke to you back in July, and when you approved well, I support the project. I'm glad you were able to fund it last July when I last spoke. I'm one of the parents of one of those IDD children who's aging.
You might want to move the mic closer.
Okay, is that better?
Closer
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm one of those aging parents who has an IDD child who I hope will get into this project. So I'm just going to say I support it. I think if you look at the bicycling, and being a bicyclist, I've ridden it. I've ridden the proposed route. It looks fine. I've driven by basically 24/7 as far as traffic concerns. The only time I've seen traffic on Mary Avenue is last time they had a flea market when the recycling station was there and when they had little demarcation set up to mark off the project. And that was it. There was nobody there. There were a couple of people who stopped by. I really urge you to pass this project and get everything signed off to move it forward.
Thank you, Stephen. Next, we have Andy Leaf, followed by Nadaraj, followed by Yvonne Thorstensen.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'm Andy Leaf with Charities Housing. I'm really just coming up to let you know we're here to answer questions. Could rebut a lot of things that have been said tonight. I do understand the neighbors' concerns, and we are willing to work with the neighbors. We have sidewalks on both sides of the street. We have bike lanes with buffers that will have bollards and can have curbs so that the bike lanes are completely safe. We are really here to work with the community, but with the understanding that we, of course, want to build these 40 units. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know we're here and we can answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Next, we have Nadaraj, followed by Yvonne Thorstensen.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. My name is Nataraj. I live on Mary Avenue and Meteor Drive around the intersection. I've been living there for over 20 years. And my concern is, again, is all about the safety of people driving through Mary to access Stevens Creek, and both for cyclists and also pedestrians, runners, and of course, just daily commute. Now, one thing that the study that may not have considered is the fact that there is a 100-unit building that's yet to be done in Westport. How does that impact the traffic? So I'm not sure if that has even been factored in. So all the data is based on something that exists today and I doubt they've considered the fact that there is going to be more new high-density housing. And finally, in a 0.75 acre land, you have 40 units. That's fairly high-density living, by my opinion. Yeah, but I'm not really in favor for this location. The idea is really good of what the true nature of the project is actually good. I support that, but not in this location. Thank you.
Thank you, Nataraj. Next, we have Yvonne Thorstensen, and then we will move to those members of the public requesting to speak virtually. Welcome, Yvonne.
Hello, I'm Yvonne Thorstensen. I'm here to speak in strong support of the Mary Avenue Villas project. I'm encouraged to see this come before the City Council today so that the project can move forward in as fast as possible. We are an affluent and generous community, and we can afford to make room for and to welcome new neighbors. That said, building in our region is very difficult because of the cost. So this project is unique and a brilliant opportunity for Cupertino to do the right thing and serve a population that is woefully underserved in our region. Building housing is often controversial. Cupertino used to have orchards, and if the past leaders in the area had listened to every worry and concern about building something new, we would not be here today. So what do you want to leave as your legacy? Do you want to leave a dusty corner of unused city land, unused, or do you want to turn it into a small, vibrant community filled with life and people? And instead of thinking about the long-term disadvantages, think about the benefits. Think about the people that are being served. These 40 households who have nowhere to go currently will be offered a new lease on life. It's really easy to say no. It's easy to stop something or tear it down. It's extremely difficult to create something new. Saying yes takes courage. So I'm asking you today to be brave, to have courage, prioritize our potential new neighbors, and move forward with this brilliant project. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. And now we will move to those requesting to speak virtually. We have 9 people with their hands raised before the cutoff. The first 3 are Pamela Hershey, Jordan Bemke, and Trevor Lang. Welcome, Pamela.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and staff. I would like to cede my time to Jordan Bemke, the attorney.
Thank you, Pamela. So Jordan will have up to 4 minutes. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Jordan Bemke. I'm an attorney with Mosaic Law, small firm in San Jose. I represent the Garden Gate community neighbors and voice an objection on their behalf to this Mary Avenue Villas project. While my clients do support affordable housing and the reservation of units specifically for the intellectually and physically disabled, this location is inappropriate for this project. It is unsuitable due to the layout of the location and the environmental issues present on the site, which put the potentially disabled residents at risk. And additionally, the traffic impact has not been adequately investigated. First off, the three reports have been conducted on the site regarding potential contaminations, and they have found concentrations of arsenic and pesticides DDE and DTE. Most concerning, they have found high levels of lead, which the reports classify as hazardous waste, according to the state of California. There was a further memorandum of peer review of the subsurface investigations, which also confirmed that the contaminated soil was hazardous waste. The peer review recommended that the applicant enter into a remediation plan with the Santa Clara County Department of Environmental Health to oversee the soil remediation of the site. And if this was to proceed, we would obviously support that. But given that this housing is focused on individuals with disabilities, this must be treated with an overabundance of caution, as they can be particularly vulnerable to even low levels of environmental hazards. So, in addition to the remediation action overseen by the Santa Clara Department of Environmental Health, we would request that they do an investigation whether the site can be made safe for individuals with disabilities, as while the current contaminated earth can be removed, since the location is at the intersections of Highway 85 and 280, we can definitely predict that further contaminants will be deposited at these sites. Additionally, regarding the traffic report. The traffic report fails to note that there is a large residence whose construction will be completed shortly. Additionally, there is an extremely large change to parking in the area, as starting January 2026, De Anza College will no longer be offering free parking to visitors. And as been previously noted by previous commentators, frequently overflow from De Anza is the main issue with parking in this area. Additionally, the city plans or perhaps has waived the setback requirements for this project, which in certain senses makes sense because of the area, but due to the location of the sound wall next to this construction, the Santa Clara County Fire Department should really do a assessment whether they can effectively fight fires with this layout. And most importantly, since there are going to be disabled individuals at this location, whether they can safely evacuate disabled individuals from the fire. We frequently have fires in California. I know I was in the fire in Santa Rosa in 2017, and there were many fatalities of elderly and disabled individuals in that fire. Finally, the city needs to make sure to dispose of the right-of-way properly and in the correct order to give the public the correct ability to meaningfully comment on this process. And finally, with respect to
Thank you. That is your time. And next we have Trevor Lang, followed by San Rao, followed by Richard Gallo. Welcome, Trevor.
Hello, I'd like to cede my time back to the previous speaker, Mr. Jordan Blumke.
It actually appears like he is. Mayor, would you like to allow that? They're ceding their time to the previous speaker for an additional 2 minutes.
Yeah, are there more people who are ceding their time?
Well, it's difficult to tell. They were.
I think people in the audience can cede their time if they haven't speak yet.
Okay. The people online were instructed in advance to try and log on to join the queue before the speaker that they're ceding their time to, but of course that's difficult because the queue
that's true.
Orders it in according to the order that the person requests to speak.
Through the mayor, it seems like the simplest solution there would also just be for the person who is expecting other people to cede their time to him to note that.
Yeah, so maybe let's go through the queue, and the attorney, if anyone are ceding the time to the attorney can speak last.
Okay.
Then we would know how much time total. So I don't know, is the attorney still online?
Yes. Yes, he is,
Okay,
Mayor.
good.
Okay, so Trevor Lang is ceding their time. So we will move on to San Rao. So I'm just asking the person. Okay, so San Rao, welcome. Are you ceding
Good e-
time, San, or are you speaking for
No,
yourself?
no, I'm not. I'm speaking for myself. Good evening, Mayor Chow and council members. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission, but speaking on behalf of myself only as a Cupertino resident, taxpayer, and voter. I will start by first asking the city attorney to request and evaluate whether council member J.R. Fruin and council member Sheila Mohan need to recuse from this hearing and recuse from future hearings on this matter. In a 2022 Santa Clara County voter guide on children's issues, Councilmember J.R. Fruin, then candidate, is on record saying that he was on the board of the Cupertino Rotary Housing Corporation, and he would advance project of this type. In 2022, this project was already in discussions, and it is possible the Cupertino Rotary Housing Corporation was involved in those discussions. And state law treats a fiduciary position on a board as a financial position. And so I'm requesting the city attorney to evaluate whether Council Member Fruin should recuse on this hearing and future hearings. I'm also requesting the CAO to evaluate whether past hearings should have been a recusal, and if so, what curative measures can be taken on that. Secondly, I'm requesting that Council Member Sheila Mohan recuse on this hearing and future hearings. The spouse of Council Member Sheila Mohan is the Rotary member. And in 2012, as we know, during the Apple hearings, then Councilmember Rod Singh had recused as his spouse was an Apple employee. And so I'm asking the CEO opinion on whether there should be a recusal tonight and in all future hearings, and what is the process to cure past failure to recuse. Secondly, if the CEO is not ready to make that call today, I'm asking that you continue this item till you get an FPPC opinion definitively on whether both of these council members should recuse. Thirdly, if that does not come back in, I'm asking the council members, you have 1,500 households from Garden Gate neighborhood, perhaps that's 3,000, maybe that's 4,500 votes. You can be assured with this kind of engagement, they're going to turn out 100% in 2026. Do you really want to be going up against the Garden Gate neighborhood in this sort of situation? Next, I want to talk about the material that was presented by the city attorney today in terms of the future steps. The sequencing said that you would do a DDA or a DA or a ground lease, followed by an exempt surplus. I'm asking you to revisit that. You need to first deem the land as whether you will dispose through a ground lease, through surplus or exempt surplus. Exempt surplus needs written findings. Until you have established written findings, you cannot proceed with an exclusive arrangement with a single bidder. And so you cannot move forward with this right now. You need to do the written findings first. Then you need to determine if you're going to have the ability to do exempt surplus. I heard you mention the subclause A and F. F refers to housing being prohibited. So F is ruled out. So let's make sure that we do this slowly. Thank you.
Thank you, San. And next we will go to Richard Gallo. Welcome, Richard.
Hello, my name is Richard Gallo. I am with Residents
Hello?
Unite Network. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And I am here in support of the Mary Avenue project. One of the problems that the disability community face is the lack of affordable housing, especially the very low income population. And that includes all individuals with disabilities, including the intellectual developmental disability community. I have always heard over and over, as a former respite worker, of parents having an adult disabled child, their fear, where's their child going to go when they're gone? Because he or she wants their child to be in an apartment with support services, supporting them around the clock care through the supported living services with the regional center services. Secondly, I'm a former unhoused advocate. I have helped individuals out of homelessness, including those with intellectual disabilities. Third, the city has the duty, the responsibility to meet the needs of the residents of the special population, the intellectual disability community. They are your residents. They are the residents of your city. You have the responsibility to provide what they need in their future. The need is now, not later. Does the city want to face with the state declassified the housing element as not being in compliance? They would be more than happy to refer to the state attorney general's office to file a lawsuit like they have done with other cities in California, because the city is choosing to not be pro-housing with our inequitable housing, with our disability population, with our workforce population that fit in the category of the very poor. You're talking about workers in your retail stores, grocery stores, coffee shop. All of them fall under the low income guidelines because they're not making a living wage for the jobs that he or she is doing, serving you in their communities. So the city needs to think about it twice. They deserve it. They need it. Remember the Olmstead ruling for the Supreme Court that these individuals have the right to live in their own choice in their own communities where he or she wants to live, and they deserve that choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Next, we have Jennifer Sharon, followed by Luis Sadati, followed by Manuel Salazar. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, Mayor Chow and council members. I'm Jennifer Sheeran, a resident of Cupertino. I've attended community meetings about the Mary Avenue Villa since it was announced. This is clearly an excellent project for our city, and it's taking way too long to finalize this. This project needs to move forward for many reasons, including our housing element. But I want to touch on a few. First, it helps serve underserved populations with critical local housing needs. We can make a difference. Second, the plans have been carefully considered with multiple departments, including transportation. We've all seen the videos. There's almost no parking use or traffic on Mary Avenue at all, every single day, including weekends, except 4 to 5 days a year during festivals, when people can park at De Anza anyway. It makes no sense to keep this huge empty parking area when it's not required and the space can be of much better use for a desperately needed housing project. I'm a regular cyclist on Mary Avenue and the former chair of the Bike Ped Commission, and the lanes that are protected there are clearly safe and very enjoyable to ride in. I cannot see how this project, which keeps the bike lanes as they are now and adds new sidewalks, could possibly make it less safe. The new road width will be just as wide as other local streets. 40 units of housing cannot possibly add a discernible higher level of traffic, especially considering, as you heard, many IDD residents will not drive. I'm confused by the comments that there will be huge safety issues and a loss of walking and biking routes. It just isn't true. You know there's been public outreach and discussions where people have shared their fears on several occasions. Charities Housing and Housing Choices both have been very open and available to discuss the project and its particulars. Having this project move forward does not mean that those opposing it were not heard. Their concerns have been investigated, addressed, and discussed, including traffic, contamination, safety, which could mean almost anything, lane width, building height, and more. Partnering with several organizations in the city of Cupertino has created a project that's best for all of Cupertino and the potential new residents. I urge you for these reasons and many more to continue this Mary Avenue Villas project tonight without reservation and without further delays. Thank you for considering my input tonight and your work on behalf of Cupertino.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, we have Luis Sadati, Manuel Salazar, and Seema Lindskog. And then we will call on Jordan Bemke, who has an additional 2 minutes seated through Trevor Lang. Welcome, Luis.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Please progress and grant city approvals for the Mary Avenue Villas project to move ahead. It's already been 5 years of open, transparent, lengthy study and discussion on this project. Many, many factors have been considered, including safety, extra parking available at De Anza College, the lanes for bikes, cars, and pedestrians, etc., etc., etc. Many thanks to the city staff, consultants, and the city council for all the work done in the last 5 years over this project. Further studying and delaying the Mary Avenue Villa project will jeopardize the project beginning or finishing. The petition with 600 signatures previously discussed has non-resident signatures. The people who object to this project can continue to make different and continuous objections forever, therefore preventing this project from ever moving forward. The project has been and will continue to address the safety in that area. There will be increasing construction costs as well as new construction codes in 2026, which will hinder the project and the project will be removed. Other city projects have been removed due to rising costs and zone and code changes. This affordable housing project would not be possible without the city-owned property on Mary Avenue. Building affordable housing is extremely difficult and needed. Some city speakers have said to build this elsewhere in Cupertino. There is no other location that can accommodate the IDD community at this affordable pricing. Supporting housing for very low income and stable residents is the humane thing to do. They are the most impacted in difficulty in finding affordable housing. Please have a heart. Please approve and authorize the Mary Avenue Villas immediately to facilitate construction beginning as soon as possible. This project will help keep our affordable housing compliant with the requirement by HCD in the next 6 months. We don't want another window of time where multiple builders remedy projects come again to Cupertino because of this. The builders remedy coming back would be a problem for the council members who enabled it coming back in the upcoming election. Let this council's legacy be approving this project for the IDD whose parents are aging and who as adults need an affordable place to stay in Cupertino. We've already had 5 years of study and discussion. Please approve and authorize the Mary Avenue Villa immediately to facilitate construction begin.
Thank you, Louise. That is your time. Next, we have Manuel Salazar, followed by Seema Linskog, followed by Jordan Bemke. Welcome, Manuel.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Manuel, and I'm here on behalf of SB at Home to express our strong support for the Marie Avenue project. This is a wonderful project. It's 40 units, 100% affordable development, and it's going to be providing, most of the 30 to 60% AMI, and nearly half of the units will serve residents with IDD. This is honestly a really underserved group in our region, and this project really gives them an opportunity to live safely, independently in Cupertino. Moving this project forward is also kind of a key element of the city's RENA goals, or it should be, along with the fact that this site has already been identified within the housing element as a priority location for lower income housing. Advancing and recommending, tonight's actions keeps the project on track for the 2026 round of 9% low income housing tax credits, bringing significant state and federal funding into the community. For every dollar that you put in, you're basically going to be getting even more back. We know that there's been a lot of questions around concerning parking and traffic, but the good news is that there are some straightforward workable solutions. As another commentator noted, the traffic impact study for this project found no safety hazards, which should help address concerns about adding sort of traffic and the dangers that are on Murray Avenue. As for the parking side, the city and the developer can partner on mobility strategies such as doing things like reduced cost transit passes, bike sharing programs, or other supportive measures that reduce car dependence. These approaches work, and they can work here too. I've also heard some concerns around the population being served, or that suggestion that this might somehow become Section 8 housing. That's really not the case. This is a new construction development being built by a highly reputable, experienced affordable housing developer. Affordable housing today is actually built at or often exceeding the quality, sustainability, and labor standards of market rate housing. These homes are well designed, well managed, and built to provide long-term stability and dignity for the people who live within here. Finally, the staff presentation lays out clear and legally sound path for the Surplus Land Act exemption, the right of way to process, negotiations of land transfer, et cetera, et cetera. So I really would just recommend going with staff recommendations. They've done a wonderful job, and I really do want to highlight that. For all these reasons, the public good this project provides, the vulnerable residents it will serve, how it helps attribute to the arena's city's obligations, and the opportunity to leverage major outside funding, we respectfully urge the council to support the recommended actions and keep Murray Avenue Villas moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Seema Linskog, followed by Jordan Bemke. Welcome, Seema.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Chow, Vice Mayor Moore, and council members. I'm a planning commissioner for the city of Cupertino, but tonight I am speaking as a resident. I urge you to support the Mary Avenue IDD housing project by moving to adopt the recommended actions. For years, families of adults with intellectual development disabilities in our city have faced an exhausting and heartbreaking reality. Their loved ones are aging into adulthood with nowhere in the city they call home to live. These are some of our most vulnerable residents, and they deserve far better from us as a city. Since the project's beginnings, multiple city councils have supported it because its purpose is clear, is to provide supportive permanent housing for these vulnerable adults in society to live with dignity and independence in the community that they've grown up in and love. I want to emphasize that this is the only extremely low-income housing site in our housing element. If you do not approve moving forward with the development, as I think a couple of people have mentioned already, we risk having to reopen the housing element and potentially, God forbid, being faced with builder's remedy again. I also want to acknowledge the concerns raised by the neighbors. They raise valid concerns, and they deserve to be heard. But I believe the staff has done an excellent, thoughtful job trying to address those concerns and ensure that this traffic is a good fit for the neighborhood. I strongly oppose Mayor Chow's proposal to convert the protected bike lanes to unprotected bike boulevards. We have heard resident after resident tonight express concern for the safety of their children biking and walking on this busy street. It would be a terrible idea to send our children out unprotected, biking on this road, mixing with 4-ton vehicles. The Mary Avenue project is badly needed. I urge you to honor the years of work, the continuity of support across multiple councils, and the needs of these families. Please move to accept the staff recommended actions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Seema. And our final speaker is Jordan Bemke. You have an additional 2 minutes to speak through time ceded by Trevor Lang. Welcome.
Thanks again, Mayor and City Council, for allowing me to speak. I just had a couple of points to make. So finally, out of abundance of caution and to avoid the appearance of impropriety, any City Council members who are also part of the Rotary Association, which is associated with promoting this project, should recuse themselves from voting on this project. All laws relating to conflicts of interest should be adhered to, and any City Council member who has a conflict of interest must recuse themselves from voting on this project. While affordable housing with the reserved spaces for the disabled is a laudable project for the city, this site is not the proper site for this endeavor. The issues with the contamination just frankly pose a health risk to the future residents of this site. We should endeavor to find a site that does not have these concerns to allow residents with intellectual disabilities to live somewhere where they're not subject to environmental concerns. Failing that, if this project is to go forward, it should be remedial action should be performed by under the supervision of the Department of Environmental Health of Santa Clara, and a further traffic assessment needs to be completed, taking into account the free parking ending in De Anza. That frankly may be a bigger effect on this neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods than anything else. They've announced that they are ending free parking in January 2026. Many proponents of this project have stated that De Anza can be used to remediate parking, but that is no longer the case. Anyway, Additionally, the fire department needs to investigate whether they can properly fight fires at this location. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jordan. Mayor, no additional requests to speak on this item.
Okay, thank you so much. So any question from the council members? First let me make a comment that the developer, I think we all recognize that we need for the low-income housing, we need housing for the IDD population. But what's at question is not whether we need those or not. What's at question is whether this is the right location for that project. But I do want to recognize that last year when the city passed the housing element, as requested by the state law, we have upzoned many sites, I think almost 60 sites in Cupertino. None of those you would require any community meeting. The current city code requires 0 community meeting for any site, even if it's 50 units, 100 units, 200 units. And it's by right approval. A lot of them does not even need council approval. It will be streamlined and so this project, because it's on the city land, I think because also we are working with developers who really care about the community, they have held 3 community meetings, and that I'm thankful for that. And I think their website have provided a lot of information and FAQ to answer a lot of the questions, although there are still other, I think, questions people still have concern about. But I would really want to recognize the effort made by the charities housing and the former mayor Ori Mahoney and Housing Choices for their outreach to the residents. But I know from the residents' point of view, it's never enough, but really, this is a lot better than any of the other projects already. So if no one wants to, I'll just go to my next question. Would the IDD units be reserved only for Cupertino residents? And who would decide that? Do we know?
I believe that point is still under negotiation, but my understanding is currently it would be primarily reserved for Cupertino residents. I believe the next tier is if there is a Cupertino caretaker that's related to the resident, or I'm sorry, related to the IDD individual. And then I think there's a third tier, if I recall correctly. But there are multiple tiers because it can be difficult to find someone that meets all the
Housing
criteria.
Choices representative, is that you, or charities? Oh, charities housing. Is the information correct, or do you have anything to add? You can raise it.
It'll
closer.
come on as you speak.
No, that all sounds accurate. And generally what we do is we have preferences for people that live in cities where we're developing. And it makes it very favorable for those people that live in Cupertino that they will get a unit there. So, but we do have to follow certain legalities, of course, but we are generally able to have a preference system.
So do you decide those priorities, or the city can decide that?
It's generally in conjunction with the city that's providing the funding. So
Mhm.
yes, we'll
Okay,
take your
great.
lead.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
The city's BMR manual does give priority points if you're a Cupertino resident. So we'll follow our existing manual to ensure that.
My understanding is that only applies to the city pool of units. So this 40 units will be for a different pool?
So if it's BMR, we can look into a little bit more, but BMR, our city does have rules on how BMR units are being selected and the selection points. There's given points if you're a resident of Cupertino, if you work in Cupertino. So that is the points portion.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
For example, the BMR building in Westport.
Correct.
My understanding is they have a separate process. They don't use our point system.
So
would the units from this project be a separate pool, or would they use the Cupertino?
The Westport units are not part of the Cupertino stock, right? So, but we were involved in the selection process, so they were following the city's regulations. This will certainly be within our stock, so we'll have to follow those the manual.
So the Mary
requirements.
Avenue Villa units will be with our stock.
Yeah, and it'll be, and like the developer said, we'll work closely with them and make sure there is that agreement for them to follow our BMR manual. That is a concern as well.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor, you have a question? Oh, Councilmember Wong first, and then Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I have a few statements and questions. Look, supportive housing is very important. We are for housing. We need low-income housing. But I agree that the location is the main issue. However, our previous city councils upzoned more land than they should have and committed to jeopardize our residents' interests. I agree that IDV residents won't drive, but they're visitors with support staff. They're all going to need parking and they're going to drive. We're about to lose 83 parking spots. It's definitely going to impact Mary Avenue with the increase in housing density and number of festivals and fairs we're actually planning. De Anza is charging for parking in January. We have no mitigation here. All the points on traffic, on all the ways about mitigating traffic being suggested are about putting the burden on 1,500 residents for 40 residents. All the arguments about outreach, those are also outrageous. There was so much engagement. Why should we have so much outpouring over the past 5 months since this project was unveiled and in the open? Once again, we have another well-meaning project where the Rotary Club worked behind the scenes and has not been forthright with the residents. Health risks should not be ignored. We really need to define, delineate those risks and ask those questions before we even approve the project. We fought hard to make sure Valpo was safe, and now we should at least protect our most vulnerable residents with the same amount of vigor. The threats about HCD and housing element are mostly unfounded. As Councilmember Flynn mentioned, so long the HE is there, the housing element is there, there's no requirement we build it, fund it, or support it with our tax dollars. You can leave it on the housing element and meet our requirements. But I'm most concerned about the process used to come to these decisions. I hope that our city takes the time to investigate conflicts of interest and seek FPPC guidance. This is outrageous. If the applicants were serious about this project, I'd also push back on the number of units. Let's build it. Let's not take out the road. Let's not take out the parking spots. If you're serious about building, then let's talk about getting the project in play without impacting 1,500 residents in the Garden Gate neighborhood. And so my questions are, will we deed restrict this to only Cupertino residents who were residents as of 5 years ago, so we don't have a gaming of the system? What is the process for gaining the land back when this project fails, or if it does fail or something happens with this financial models? Do we have that in place? Can other folks bid for the land when this is deemed surplus land? From my understanding, this land is identified. The process should be open. It should not be closed, and other people can bid on this land as required by law. So hopefully staff can answer those 3 questions. Thank you.
So there were 3 questions?
There are 3 questions. One is, will we deed restrict to only Cupertino residents who were residents as of 5 years ago so we don't game the system? 2, what is the process for gaining the land back should the project fail? And 3, can other folks bid for the land when this is deemed surplus land? I understand that's the process, but I want to make sure we hear that directly from our team.
Councilmember Wong, let me take a stab at answering those questions. The first one regarding the deed restriction, I believe that we have a mechanism in place not necessarily a deed restriction that that Attorney Hernandez was referring to, that would specify the process for choosing the residents. And maybe I will ask her to elaborate on that after I complete the other two. The process for potentially, if we decide to go the DDA route, for taking the land back if the project fails in some way, that is the item that the negotiators would be negotiating through the DDA negotiation process. And so until we begin that, we don't have the specifics on the valuation mechanism for bringing the land back into the city, but that would be that focus. And then the third was, what was the third one?
I believe
the third one was really when the land is deemed surplus land. Isn't that supposed to be out to bid so other buyers can also bid for it?
Well, the project was set up to be an affordable housing project, specifically of this nature. And so when the project was put out into the marketplace, it was set up during the RFP process to focus specifically on exempt surplus land uses. And we had one bidder who came forward, and that was the bidder that the city has been working with. And so prior to the RFP process, that was when the decision of the city was made to focus on an exempt affordable project.
So we allowed one bidder without an open process, but we haven't deemed it as surplus land. Is that correct?
Well, we opened it up. If there had been more than one bidder, then we would have been working with more than one bidder. But based on the parameters, there was only one bidder who came forward. At least that's my understanding.
And to clarify, was that RFP for a ground lease? Or was that for the surplus land?
I am not sure if the RFP specified whether it was to be a ground lease or a land sale. I think that we would have to look back or speak with the planners to understand what the detail of the RFP was.
Let me check on that, because I believe the RFP was for a ground lease, not for surplus land.
Maybe the
And
planners.
then one last piece, yeah, we can check on that. And the last piece is, if this project fails and they build and something happens, who's required to restore that land back to the 83 parking spots and the original condition? Can we deem that as a condition as well?
That would be included in the negotiation around what the buyback mechanism, price, and deal points would be.
Okay. And then the last piece, which is the important part, I still want to get back to this, is what can we do on the FPPC side in terms of understanding the conflict of interest?
Councilmember Wong, I've, on behalf of Councilmember Fruin, I have looked into that, and the city attorney has concluded that he does not have a disqualifying conflict of interest. And although it would be somewhat different analysis with Councilmember Mohan, again, I believe the conclusion would again be that the councilwoman does not have a disqualifying conflict.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, just for the public's information, does Councilmember Fruin currently sit on the Cupertino Housing Corporation
No.
board?
I have
So
not
you-
sat on that board since I came to office.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Mayor, if I may, I'm just getting word from our Director of Community Development, and he is indicating to me that the RFP did not identify a lease or a for sale. So the RFP did not specify one or the other mechanism for the property interest transfer.
Okay, I am curious, what was the RFP for?
Maybe I'll ask John to answer that because he was involved in that process.
Repeat the question, Madam Mayor. What was
What was the RFP? We did an RFP where there was only one bidder. What was the RFP process for?
Well, so yeah, the RFP. So we went out to HCD and sent it out to, I believe, between 100 and 200 interested parties that are listed with HCD at the time. A few had questions about it. Again, this is
No, I mean, what are they bidding for?
well, they're bidding for use of the land for affordable housing development, consistent with the housing element proposal at the time.
So they are bidding for an opportunity to build
Develop
on
housing
this
on the site.
property.
Correct.
But,
Through the mayor, and did they bid for the land that was already the surplus land or the land that was available? And what I mean by that is there are two parts here. You have the surplus land and you have the land we are gifting from the streets. What were they bidding on?
I assume they bid on the parcel that was created by the city council.
Not the streets. Not the streets, correct?
I'm not understanding the question. Councilman, not the street, what does that mean?
That parcel does include a portion of the street.
At the time it was being bid out.
It was presumed that the parcel would be created from a portion of Mary Avenue right away, which would have included the parking.
And why was that presumed?
I'm not understanding your question.
Why did we presume we were going to give the street away? Who made that decision?
City Council.
Yeah, I think I was part of that in 2020, maybe, that we created a parcel. At that time, we had 2 levels of underground parking at Westport. And so parking wasn't a huge issue at that time. And we did create a parcel where on-street parking would be part of the parcel, yeah. Then later we had Westport modify the project. So initially, then we were down to 1 level of parking of the underground parking, then down to 0 level of underground parking. So unfortunate. Okay, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So there was a question regarding fire hazards. So the fire department would be having someone doing a plan check review on this project?
Yes, when the applicant applied for the architectural site approval, the plans were routed to all relevant divisions of departments, which includes Santa Clara County Fire.
Okay, thank you. There is a question about safety issues. I'm going to assume that has to deal with the street. So when I'm looking at the cross section, it was kind of surprising that the right-of-way was 94 feet to begin with. It's huge. So I can understand why there is this extra space in that area. So ordinarily, you would only need about 50 feet in order to accommodate the 2 lanes of traffic. And in most of the residential areas in Cupertino, there is no protected bike lane. It's a combination of a traffic lane with the bicycle going through there. And then if you are 12 or younger in Cupertino, you are allowed to bike on the sidewalk as well. So in the cross-section that you provided in the presentation, you show a 5-foot sidewalk, a 5-foot bike lane, plus a 2-foot bike buffer, 11-foot traffic lane. You could have gone down to 10. So you have that in each direction, and then you've got an 8-foot parking lane, another 2.5-foot bike buffer, 5-foot bike lane, and a 4.5-foot sidewalk on the that would be the west side of the street. So is the curb on the east side being moved at all? Because to me it looks like the curb and the sidewalk will be remaining, that those aren't being altered on the east side.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Now I'm seeing a relocated City of Cupertino fiber optic line. Who will be paying for that?
I don't have the information right now, but I don't, typically a developer would pay for that. But
yeah. That's on the developer. Okay, so the question about the FPPC potential recusal has already been addressed. So what, in our attorney's estimation, is going to happen, would happen with regards to HCD if this site was removed from the housing element?
I can't opine about what HCD would immediately do, but it would add to the burden of the loss of affordable housing that we've earmarked in the housing element, and put us at some point in the future in, unless we replace it in another way, in a compromised position with respect to our housing element and HCD's review of our position.
In the housing element, was this specified as being extremely low income? Was the income category
I believe it was. Luke, yeah.
Okay, let me try to answer that. Yeah, there were 58 properties in the housing element. This is the only site of those that was entirely for low income. So in the housing element, very low and low are merged. This is the only site. We only have one other site that is all income restricted, but that includes moderate. So I also don't want to opine on what HCD would say, but I have a pretty good guess. Given that this is the only low-income site and it's under city control and the city carved the parcel out for this, that would be a very awkward conversation to have with them as to why we couldn't go forward.
And I would imagine that we would also have a potential lawsuit on our hands from one of the organizations which has already sued us a number of times now. So with regards to traffic impacts, this is considered an infill site?
It would certainly qualify for the Class 32 exemption infill site. It's well under 5 acres. It's consistent with our land use policies. And also by being by right approval by virtue of being a housing element site with the appropriate density and being entirely low income, it's exempt from CEQA.
Okay. And with infill sites, the assumption is that it's actually reducing traffic.
Yes, that is generally true.
Yeah, that's what I'm finding as well. So with regards to the hazardous material, what's being described is removable waste. You truck it out. It's not waste that has soil vapor, such as PCE, which would need a whole lot of mitigations associated with it. And we've already gone through this type of a cleanup with the Mary Avenue Dog Park right next door, if people remember that project. The Westport future construction, that one's already approved, but if it were to happen now, would it be considered an infill site?
Not sure the total acreage for Westport, but with...
Just the senior part, the last remaining piece, if we're considering that. The point being is that the traffic isn't expected to go swing up towards the Public Works yard. The traffic would be going the opposite direction.
Correct.
Okay. Now I already went over the fire department's going to have to sign off on the project. Recusal. Does this site have to provide any parking at all under the current housing laws?
Based on who would be inhabiting this at income level and the IDD population, I think the 22 spaces would clearly meet parking standards for that. This is not a typical housing project. If it were, say, a private developer proposed project who would be qualifying for density bonus and be able to waive essentially any standards based on the income levels. So, which we're seeing on just about all the projects we have these days that are much lower density than this one and much less affordable than this one.
Okay. So what issues with this project would be compelling perhaps to HCD if this were to be removed?
That's very difficult to answer because trying to represent HCD's take is they are in the business of promoting housing. I think if the city were to look for an alternate location, say, for additional housing, I think their reaction would be, that's great, now you have two. That's what I suspect we would get. The city has taken a lot of active steps to get this in the housing element. One of the speakers tonight alluded to another issue where in low and moderate income, we are already extremely close to having to look at additional sites. Not for market rate, but for low and moderate income sites. We do not have much of a buffer. In some cases, we may not have any soon. So at the low and moderate income levels, it would be especially difficult to lose any prospective units.
Does this project help with those categories at all?
All we could really do is go down because the expectation was 40 low-income units. And that's what the project is proposing. So we're meeting what's in the housing element exactly. That's the difficulty where you have an expectation built into the housing element. You have to try to hit it. Some of the lower density sites that had submitted applications prior to the housing element certification are coming in lower than what the housing element expected. So this is only providing what the housing element anticipated. It's not exceeding it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else have questions? If not, I have some question more. Okay, so first, ex parte disclosure, I think we forgot to do that. I did meet with Ori Mahoney about the project. Anyone else has any disclosure? Although we are not approving the project, but still.
Mayor, point of order, do we need to extend time?
Yeah. So I move that we extend time to 11 o'clock.
Moore, second.
Let's vote.
Councilmember Fruin?
Aye.
Councilmember Mohan?
Aye.
Councilmember Wong?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Chow?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you for the reminder. Anyone has the ex parte disclosure? Just for transparency, it's not legally required at this
Yeah,
point.
I was going to say, this isn't a quasi-judicial matter, but, I've spoken to Orrin Mahoney, I've spoken to Kathy Robinson with Charities Housing, and I've certainly spoken to a number of the residents in the area.
And I've spoken to Orrin Mahoney.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
I've spoken to Orrin Mahoney. I've spoken to many of the residents of Mary Avenue. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I've spoken to Orrin Mahoney casually, but I haven't seen his material until today.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So I do have some. So first of all, there was some comment that, oh, this is taking so long. Why are we doing this again? I think that's really a misconception because the only time the project itself is on the council agenda was July 15th. And at that time, the only attachment available was the plan set. There was no parking configuration, nothing about the CEQA documents, and then there were no other process document. So many community members had a lot of very good questions, and therefore we are having this additional meeting to try to clarify that up. But initially, even this meeting wasn't even planned to happen. But at today's agenda packet, I still didn't see anything about parking. There is a bird picture in the presentation about parking. I was referenced to the info memo from August, but to date, there is not a council meeting where the parking configuration, the reduction is actually on the agenda. And there is no secret documents. And I think the attorney letter from the Garden Gate neighborhoods, thank you for referencing some of these secret documents that I actually haven't seen. And the traffic assessment report that it's not also not included in this agenda packet. So if I were in the place of a resident, I would have to say that this gives the perception that we are trying to hide parking and traffic impact intentionally. Yes or not, but that's the perception people would have since two meetings in a row, we did not provide the most important thing people have been asking, parking, traffic. We know that repeatedly all the people support the project say there is no traffic. Then if there's no traffic, why can we just remove the separated bike paths? We have a bike boulevard because there is no traffic. And we know that there is no parking need, but then in that area, we have a deficit of parking for Memorial Park already, and we do need parking on Memorial Avenue for the times when we have festivals and other events in Memorial Park and also senior center. So, but that issue, yeah, I have to find the information here and there, but it's not actually on the agenda. So I'm disappointed at that. But I do have another question. So one of the staff recommendation is to maintain the timeline to support 2026 9% tax credit application. What exactly does that mean? What kind of timeline? And so my understanding is the tax credit application would happen before the ADD. And then so what's timeline we are looking at right now?
So just to clarify a little bit about the timeline, the tax credit application is currently expected to be submitted around April 7th, 2026. But as noted throughout the presentation and through discussions tonight, there's a couple different elements that need to be completed in time, including a signing of the DDA and approval of the vacation process to the extent necessary, and declaration of this land as exempt surplus land. In addition to that, the entitlements would need to be awarded as well, which is on the planning side. And in particular, the DDA and the entitlements are required for submission for tax credits. So those two pieces are required in order to submit the application. And it was just more from a strategic standpoint that it made sense for the Surplus Land Act declaration and the vacation to occur concurrently.
Oh, so, okay, so I misunderstood. So it's a reverse. So all of those need to be done before the April deadline.
Correct. Not all of those need to be done. Only the DDA and the entitlements are required to be done. But it does make sense to also complete the vacation and the Surplus Land Act declaration simultaneously. However, if the council feels that it's more appropriate to come later, that's certainly something that I would pass, or I would defer to the city attorney.
So currently we are planning that for likely March?
Attorney Hernandez, tell me why it would be beneficial to have the council approve all of those 4 items.
So it would be beneficial because approving the vacation and completing the declaration for the Surplus Land Act would strengthen the application, which requires that the applicant has sufficient control over the property in order to receive an award.
Okay. Okay, any other questions?
The mayor, I have an additional question that I'd like to ask the city attorney and of course the team here. So Let me walk through the process and help me understand this process for the sequence of exempt surplus or surplus before any disposition or lease discussion. Is there something we need to do in a specific order? Are there written findings with evidence for exempt surplus? Do we need to vacate before exempt surplus? What are the subclauses, cited definitions for exempt surplus that we need to meet? Because I don't feel like that process is very clear at this moment or well defined.
Yes. So with respect to whether the Surplus Land Act declaration needs to occur prior to or after the vacation, they're completely separate processes. So one does not impact the other in terms of the overall timeline of when it needs to be accomplished. With respect to the vacation, there's no statutory requirement that it occur at a certain time. The only requirement is that the vacation must be completed at least 30 days prior to disposition. And with respect to the Surplus Land Act, because this project from inception has been structured in such a way to meet the requirements of an exemption, and just to, I think you mentioned in your question whether there's a listing of those exemptions, there is within a statute. I can nail down exactly what that number is for you, but there is a statute that lists out exactly what categories of projects are exempted from surplus land, the Surplus Land Act requirements. And as long as you fall into one of those categories, the only requirements are to make the declaration of exempt surplus land, and then and that's the requirement. So the requirement to have a notice of action and proceed under the more stringent procedure is only applicable if you have surplus land. But since this project, as I mentioned from inception, was structured in such a way to meet one of the exemption criteria, it's just a matter of actually doing the declaration.
So from your understanding is that we don't need written findings with evidence and hearings needed to deem exempt surplus. That's the opinion at the moment. But shouldn't it come back to council for a resolution to deem exempt surplus after written findings? Isn't that the process, or the exemption takes that away? Is that the interpretation we have at the moment?
So there's no written findings that need to meet a particular requirement that's set forth in the Surplus Land Act, because the project itself will meet the requirement of an exemption. The way we would know that is by how the project is described in the DDA, which is another reason why it makes sense for the the exempt surplus land declaration to occur simultaneously, because the DDA, once approved, is securing the fact that the project will be structured a certain way, and that structure is what meets the exemption.
No, thank you. Can we get that in an informational memo just to clarify that? Because it's confusing. I've read through the Surplus Land Act, I've read through the vacation laws, and it doesn't read that way to me with the exemptions we have, but it'd be nice to make sure we make that clear to the public.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Fruin.
Amongst the supplemental items, I believe in the desk item for today, there are some additional hearings that are described where this site was discussed. They're all within the context of the housing element. So, Mr. Martiri, if you could describe each of those, I'd appreciate it.
Are you referring to question, the response to question number 9?
Probably.
Okay. This is the question again. Just so I understand, this is the question was, the staff report had identified that the public review draft of the housing element was in October 2022, and the question was, was this housing element site discussed in a public hearing environment? And so what the supplemental memo or the desk memo had said was, we identified a number of dates prior to that October 2022 date. I would say starting in April of that year, going to May, June, and then 3 public meetings in August, which the city council had known about this. At least this site was on a housing priority list as well.
Okay, all right. So given all the prior hearing opportunities that existed where this was discussed before it was ever submitted to HCD for even a preliminary review, there had been many opportunities to see this, contribute to it, comment on it, and there were people who certainly commented on it. This site was included as a result of a lot of advocacy, not just some whim of council that occurred at one point in the distant past. I am frustrated and would certainly understand the concern that neighbors have that they didn't know about it if we weren't doing an awful lot of outreach. So I do have concerns about what the nature of our outreach will look like going forward, especially if, as a result of yesterday's TBD list discussion, we are going to have to look at additional sites for the housing element because of the shortfall that will arise. And in addition, because of alterations that we might want to make to help preserve retail in our commercial corridors, that maybe that's a really good opportunity to also look at how we do public engagement around this sort of larger, higher level planning work that isn't just a single site rezoning, so that the people don't feel surprised. Because that doesn't feel good to anybody, and we can answer a lot of questions and incorporate a lot of concerns up front, as opposed to everything feeling like a done deal later. So I hope that at least when we get to that topic, we can maybe address how outreach works. I did want to also underscore that we did actually, in addition to the site being a housing element in the site's inventory, we have a separate strategy inside the housing element in the policy side of it about facilitating additional housing specifically for extremely low-income households. And that's not just a thing that we bound ourselves to because we needed to get certified. It was an immediate requirement of the state law anyway. It literally tells us that we have to, quote, assist in the development of adequate housing to meet the needs of extremely low, very low, low, and moderate income households. I'll cite it again because I cited it earlier. It's Government Code Section 65583, subdivision F2A. So this is a planning requirement. We took that on. We included a housing element strategy that incorporated this notion. It expanded on it, and then we bound ourselves to that by getting HCD sign-off. So if we were to change the strategy and do something else, we would still, irrespective of that, have to abide by this admonition in state law, yes?
Correct.
Okay, all right. So, it's not a matter of simply going and finding some other site. This is something that we told the state we were going to do. And we told them this over many iterations of the housing element as it was refined.
Okay, thank you. I actually don't really understand which strategy you are referring to. If the staff can give me a written answer after the meeting, that would be great. I would like to look into what exactly we bound ourselves into voluntarily.
I'll give you the strategy. It's strategy HE 2.3.10.
Yeah, if the staff can give me that later.
It's in the staff report.
Thank you. And then also, I think we currently have a work program item specifically because of the concern people have raised about when we approved the housing element project. There were 58 sites included. None of the neighbors received any specific notification about a site in their neighborhood. And why? Because I was told by the city attorney, the former city attorney at the time, for this kind of citywide upzoning, we don't notify people. We do a very general postcard thing that no one really knows what's going on. And for that very reason, we have included a work program item for this year to look at how we should notify. Perhaps then for in the future when we upzone multiple sites citywide, we would do the radius notification for each site. And that's something that's already on the work program, so I hope that we get to that this year. And then also the requirement of some cities require community meetings before project proposal, and we don't require that. So I'm surprised by some project that happens even as a council member that I didn't know it's being proposed. So that's something we hope to improve. Now, I would like to ask a question that the attorney for the Garden Gate neighborhood raised, because I'm still not very certain about that. So I mentioned that there were documents referenced by the letter from that attorney. These 4 documents, 3 of them in the share screen, the first 3 are environmental documents that I haven't read. And the other is a transportation assessment. So they should have been included in the agenda packet. I hope in the future they are, in case this comes back. And then there were 3 requests made in that letter. I hope to know whether they are reasonable or not. Number 1 is enter into a remedial action agreement with the Department of Environmental Health. Is that something we can request the developer to do?
Typically, when there's soil contamination, found with, at least from a phase 2 report, the recommendation from the consultant as well as our peer review consultant does require some type of soil management plan, SMP, with oversight from DEH, which is the Department of Environmental Health. That's with the county.
So we can include this in the DAA?
As well as a condition of approval on the ASA.
So we can include this, right? Great. And also conduct further traffic assessment since the parking situation changed at the Anzao College. Would that be necessary? Or how much of the impact would that be on the current assessment we already have?
I mean, typically that would go beyond what the city would require for similar or even any other type of development. Typically when we do traffic assessments or traffic impact analysis, it's the project on a neighborhood or how the project's direct effect on it, not necessarily the surrounding area's effect on the project or whatnot. This would be beyond what even CEQA requires.
This project remove 1898, 89 on parking spaces.
That's something I would have to discuss internally with staff to see if this is something that we could require.
Because this is not a project on that site. It's a project that requires a street configuration that remove parking from both sides, right? So it's different.
Mayor, I just wanted to confirm the traffic study that we were talking about. That is complete, and it's going to be added to the city's website pretty soon.
That's correct, yeah.
So does that address the impact of the parking removed?
There was a parking memorandum done by Hexagon Consultants, and it was peer reviewed internally by our traffic division as well. So it does discuss, the parking impacts as well as observational data from the spring of 2025.
When there were festivals, but we can observe that because the festival parking now can park in the Anzao, right? So that we don't have any data on that actually. Okay. So yeah. So we don't have any data on what's the traffic impact. So on item 3 is engage the fire department to assess the impact of fire safety services as a result of the site restrictions, the narrower road, increased traffic and parking on this street. So what's the engagement with fire department? so far?
Yeah, the fire department has reviewed this project and multiple times, at least through 3 rounds of review.
Mm-hmm. So there is no concern with any access for fire engine access?
Not as it relates to siting of the buildings or of the width of the road.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And there is a narrower street and also a smaller setback, right? So that will not be any concern.
No, not at all.
Okay, thank you. And so I would like to propose a motion, if I may. Where is it? Just a minute. Sure. I think it's... Is it this one? Okay. Okay. So I guess I will...
Can you increase the font, Mayor?
Okay, yeah. I'll do this in portions. First, motion is to appoint the city manager and the city attorney as the negotiators for the Rotary with the Cupertino Rotary Housing Cooperation, Housing Choices Coalition, and Charities Housing regarding a possible transfer of property rights in the form of ground lease or sale. This is in the staff recommendation. And second, I hope to consider deed restrictions to or possible contract, I guess, or DAA in some way to limit, to limit to Cupertino resident, especially long-time resident. Therefore, consider the possibility of giving higher priority for more years living in Cupertino. That way, if someone has been 20-year Cupertino resident, they get more priority than a 5-year resident or 1-year resident. Explore, I guess, whatever way potential. So that would be my motion so far.
Mayor,
Point of order.
Yeah.
Instead of limit, sorry.
Point of order. I believe this is a study session, and I believe we cannot make a motion here. Is that correct? We can motion to table or postpone. We can refer an issue to committee. We can place an item to be on future agenda. We can do a procedural vote, but this is a study session.
I think there are 2 portions for this item. It's true that the first one is a study session, but we do need to take action on the second portion, that's appointing the negotiator. But as part of the study session, I think we often give direction on what we would like to see when the item comes before the council, because then it gives clearer direction for the staff on what they can choose.
Pardon me,
consider,
Mayor?
yeah.
I think we need a motion to extend 15 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
So moved.
Okay, let's vote.
I didn't detect a second.
Councilor
Fruin second, Moore moved.
Okay.
So
I
we
think
go
we
to
should
11.
include the specific item to be discussed. I think it's obvious, but it's supposed to be part of the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, friendly amendment, continue, what number is this? Continue the current item. 12.
Number 12.
Number 12.
Okay.
You accept the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, would you like me to conduct the roll call vote?
Yeah.
Councilmember Fruin,
Aye.
Councilmember Mohan,
Aye.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Moore,
Aye.
Mayor Chow.
Aye.
The amended motion carried unanimously.
And Mayor, I do have a quick question about your motion as it's progressing. The recommended action slide that they showed us said appoint negotiators to negotiate either a disposition and development agreement, repurchase option, or a long-term ground lease. So does your motion
It's either
specify?
or a form of ground lease or sale.
Okay, so are we supposed to choose one of those?
No,
Or
I-
leave it
We're
up-
not
leave it up
choosing
to-
now.
They
Yeah.
will
Correct.
choose, they will decide.
Okay, very good.
The negotiator will bring us more information
Okay.
so we can decide. That's my understanding.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. And then further, their recommended action says to direct staff to perfect surplus land act exemption, right-of-way vacation, and prepare entitlements for future council action, and maintain a timeline to support the 2026 9% tax credit application. Is that something that you would be considering in your motion?
I didn't think that we need direction on those because those are something we have to do anyway.
Okay, is that true for staff?
It can't hurt to go ahead and direct us to create those documents so that we're moving the project along.
Okay, so I would probably make that as a friendly amendment if you have a seconder on your original one.
Okay.
Motion.
Are you
Point of order.
seconding? Oh,
Point of order. I'm going to push again.
yeah.
This is the study session. Study sessions should not have these types of motions. I mean, in a study session, they should just be an informal conversation and discussion for information gathering. We're not supposed to be taking official action, even though I know the description has a recommended action, but this is a study
Yeah.
session item. So I would highly suggest that we are breaking Rosenberg's rules here and our own rules. Do we have a parliamentarian that can weigh in on this? Because it says study sessions, and I was not intending to make an action here today.
Yeah, I actually am not comfortable with those staff recommendation because it was not included in the staff report. It was only included in the slides today, so that's why I didn't want to include that as the motion initially. I thought the motion should be some direction from the council on what we would like to see.
As
Those-
We can provide
point of-
direction.
As a point of order, as a question to the city attorney, as the city attorney, you are the parliamentarian, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so do you see an issue? Because it sounds like you said you didn't.
I don't see an issue. In the past, we have had study sessions and gotten, clear direction from council and taken them back and drafted ordinances. And then when we bring the ordinance back, that's when the council really does the nitty-gritty work of making an actual decision to move forward with an ordinance. And this would be a similar thing where the city attorney and staff would be preparing future documents that we would bring back to the city council, and that would be when the council would make the nitty-gritty decision to actually move forward with the process.
Yeah, and I would agree with that assessment.
Point of order to the city attorney. I would like to ask, have we separated the informal learning and discussion phase from the formal decision-making phase here?
Yes, I do see, I didn't, you were a little bit garbled, but I do see there being two separate actions. One is moving the project forward, and then the other is actually making a formal vote to approve a project or an entitlement or a DDA.
Sorry, I'm garbled. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I mean, have we separated the informal learning and discussion phase here from the formal decision-making phase? Yes or no?
Well, I believe we're in the process of working out and then ultimately voting on a motion. And so that motion would be to inform staff how to move forward.
But we entered the formal decision-making phase with this motion.
Do we have a second on the motion yet? I'm not sure we do.
No.
Yeah, we don't
I
have a
wanted to
second
get to that
yet.
before we have a second. I wanted to get to that before we have a second.
As a point of order, I think that Councilmember Wong may be asking a slightly different question, which is, are we yet at a decision-making phase? And the answer to that is simply no. We don't have the disposition agreement in front of us. We don't have entitlements in front of us. We don't have the surplus land exemption declaration before us. We don't have, any of the other things that we are expecting to come before us in order to be able to complete this process. So no, we're not at the decision-making phase yet.
Thank you, Councilmember.
With
Yes.
respect to Councilmember Fruin on that, we are making a decision to appoint the city manager as the negotiator. That is a decision making.
Which is properly noticed.
There are, if
But
you
as
read
a
the
study session,
agenda,
as a study session,
Councilmember
as a
Wang,
study session.
Councilmember Wang, there are two sub-items to this item. The study session and the appointing negotiator are two separate sub-items.
But what does the heading on the item number say? Does it say we're making an action, or does it say we're making a study session? Read that, read what it says. I'm being a stickler here intentionally here.
It has 2 points. One is conduct a study session, and then it describes that, and it says consider appointing negotiators for the possible
But
transfer.
but the header says study session. We're under the study session category. On the bottom of page 7, it says study session. It does not say action. It does not say public hearing. It says study session. So we are in a study session. We are not here to make a decision.
But there is and number 2, consider appointing negotiator. This was continued from the last meeting. We pulled the item and continued the item for appointing negotiator, and that's part of the item 12.
Then this was agendized improperly as a study session. This was not agendized as an action item.
Councilmember Wong, I respectfully disagree with your interpretation of the agenda. I do see that there is a heading that says study session, but underneath the heading, there's an item 12, which says subject, and the subject clearly has 2 parts. There's no requirement in the Brown Act that the agenda be perfect. It's just that the agenda provide notice to the public so that they could understand whether they would like to show up and make comment on the item. And clearly, the point number 2 says consider appointing negotiators, and I do believe that that satisfies the requirement of the Brown Act by giving notice to the public of what the council will be discussing.
Well, at this point, then I will have to leave the meeting. You do understand the ramification.
No, I'm sorry, I don't understand.
At this point, I will have to leave the meeting,
Why is that?
and the meeting will conclude.
Then we cannot vote
We-
on anything.
We are on a study session. We are on a study session. We are not in an action item. This should have been put in the agenda correctly as a study session first and as an action item. I'm being a stickler here.
On what basis do you make that claim?
This is a study session.
No, you
Since
have
when
the
do you take
opinion.
action on
You
a
have the
study
opinion
session?
of the city attorney. You have my opinion as an additional attorney that this notice is sufficient. You're not an attorney.
Then I will leave the meeting.
If you, I'm sorry, sir. If you leave the meeting, you can leave the room open for the public to participate.
I cannot, according to the Brown Act.
Because you think you're in violation of the Brown Act, that's seriously your contention over and above the advice of the city attorney and another attorney on the dais.
It says study session on there. We have asked to follow council procedures. You have strictly agreed that we should follow council procedures. You have strictly agreed that we should follow the Rosenberg's rules of
And
order.
it is clearly noticed.
It is noticed in the wrong section and improperly noticed.
No.
With respect.
No.
Okay. Well, have a wonderful evening, everybody, and thank you.
That's not what he wants to do.
For the record, Councilmember Wong has terminated his Zoom connection.
So based on the experience from last time, we have to terminate the meeting
I am afraid we do.
Okay, so we will talk about what to do next.